I realized it was just basically to tell me that I didn't know Erika, that Erika was lying at every single point in time, and that she never loved Charlie.
Candace Owens truly believes,
yes,
based off your conversation with her,
yes,
that Erika never loved Charlie, and it's based off what?
Well, it's based off a delusion. When you have someone that's outside that is trying to outright destroy someone, they will take any tactic that they can if they believe that it serves their actual narrative and purpose.
In the summer, there were conversations of your daughter potentially like adding to her role and or doing more traveling, and you didn't even know if it was the campus events in general.
For months, people kept scrolling past the questions surrounding Erika Kirk's story, brushing it off, calling it noise, acting like it had no real foundation worth examining. But now someone from inside her own circle is speaking up, and what's coming out is shifting the entire conversation in a direction that's impossible to dismiss. Because according to what's now circulating, her own close friend is surfacing details that simply don't line up with the story that's been presented publicly. From the pregnancy claims to the specific locations where she was allegedly staying behind the scenes, none of it is matching up the way it should. And once those receipts started surfacing, the conversation didn't just grow, it transformed. It stopped being about small inconsistencies and became something significantly bigger, about whether the entire story was carefully and deliberately staged from the very beginning. That's a completely different level of question, and people are treating it that way. What makes this development hit differently from everything that came before it is where the information is reportedly coming from. This isn't outside critics throwing accusations from a distance. According to what's circulating, someone described as a close friend, Tracy Martin, is now being linked to claims that are actively reshaping how people view the full picture. And that distinction matters enormously. When criticism arrives from the outside, it's easy to frame it as an attack, easy to dismiss it as politically motivated, easy to call it jealousy or agenda-driven noise.
How to be a biblical woman in society. I think it was Elizabeth Elliot that said, being a woman does not make me a better Christian or a certain Christian, but being a Christian makes me a very different woman. And I think understanding, yes, your biblical role, but also like be the woman that your future husband deserves. Like be the woman that, you know, God wants you to be. You don't have to be out partying. Don't, you know, be crazy thinking like I'm running out of time when your God is the author of time.
But when it starts coming from someone described as close, someone with real access and real proximity, people stop scrolling and start paying close attention. That shift in sourcing changes the entire weight of what's being said. Now here's where things get genuinely uncomfortable, because the claims being discussed aren't about minor details or small timeline gaps. They're about something significantly bigger and more specific. Questions are being raised around Erika's pregnancy timeline and about where she was actually staying during certain key periods, not officially confirmed, but detailed enough that people are looking very carefully at the specifics being shared. And the detail that really grabbed and held attention was the mention of hourly rentals. That one specific detail didn't just raise eyebrows, it completely redirected the conversation. Because now people aren't just asking whether things don't add up, they're asking why certain things would allegedly need to be staged or concealed at all. And once that question enters the room, everything else starts getting pulled back out and re-examined through a completely different lens. Because this isn't happening in a vacuum either. When people went back and looked carefully at Erika's documented public history, they noticed something that keeps repeating itself with uncomfortable consistency. Stories that sound completely solid at first, but then begin shifting and changing once older footage, photos, or verifiable timelines resurface and get placed directly alongside what was said publicly.
TPUSA did a massive purge of employees a few days ago, or at the end of, I guess, last week, you could say. What did you hear about that purge?
I heard there were 30 to 40 people purged, that they were looking for the leak. They knew there are leaks out of TPUSA. They are terrified of these leaks because of what TPUSA has been up to. And rather than try to be an honest organization, it's just let's get rid of all the people we think might be disclosing that we're a dishonest organization.
It's just unbelievable.
Take the early image she constructed. Disciplined, private, untouched by the kind of chaotic social lifestyle she later publicly warned others to avoid. That narrative held firm for a long time, until clips from earlier years began circulating. Reality TV appearances, social settings, a completely different energy and presentation than anything she later described as her background. Not necessarily damning on its own, people genuinely do change and evolve, but drastically different from the version of herself she consistently presented. And that's where the first visible crack appeared in the foundation of the story. Then came the relationships, public ones, documented clearly at the time, visible to anyone who was watching. Names like JT Massey and Josh Jason resurfaced alongside photos and interviews that painted a clear and undeniable picture of a history that existed. But those same documented connections were later minimized, quietly omitted, or left completely out of the narrative she presented going forward. And once people recognized that specific pattern of selective erasure, it became significantly harder to dismiss as simple privacy or personal growth, because it suggested something more calculated was operating underneath the surface. Now, bring it directly back to the present, because when these new claims started circulating, people didn't treat them like random, unconnected gossip floating around with no context.
Back in 2013, Erika Kirk, or rather Erika Fronsky, because that's her maiden name, was dating a basketball player named Joshua Harrelson. Joshua Harrelson's Twitter handle is @BigGeorge55. That is a crazy Twitter handle. Anyways, how do I know this? How do I know that they dated? Well, despite Erika deleting all of her old posts and pictures and privating her old accounts, many people commented underneath her posts, and those comments underneath her posts are still visible on Twitter. For example, this tweet from November 11th, 2013, @Erika Fronsky @BigGeorge55. It's the best when it's like that. Everything is just practice until the one.
They placed them carefully next to everything that had already surfaced and been documented. The shifting timelines, the resurfaced footage, the inconsistencies that were raised publicly and never fully or satisfactorily addressed. All of it started forming a picture that individual pieces alone couldn't create, but together couldn't be ignored. Then there's the specific timeline around Charlie Kirk's passing, because that layer adds significant weight to everything else. The speed with which Erika stepped into the public spotlight after his death, the rapid pace of public appearances, the swift and comprehensive expansion of her visible presence across platforms and organizations. Some people read that as strength and composure under devastating pressure. Others saw something that looked far more like preparedness than grief, like someone who had already been ready for exactly this moment before it arrived. And when you combine that interpretation with what's now being alleged about where she was actually staying, the use of different locations and setups that reportedly don't match the public version of events.
This is crazy.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
No, and I know you're going to keep saying I understand.
Yeah.
Like, I know that.
No, I know.
And I know there's probably no magic string of words that I could piece together to procure some type of answer, but
Yeah.
I think on a surface level, like, I'm not going to walk out of here until I say my piece. Like, I mean, y'all know this. I just worked a series of 80, 90-hour weeks plus for Amfest.
Yeah, I think
I've had no direction or explanation since we've come back. Our CEO has been assassinated. I've done nothing but been backwards for this organization to the point where I'm wondering if this is a prank.
it's not a prank. I would never do that.
So I'm just trying to understand. And
No, I understand. It's time to.
so do
it's
I
time
get to have a conversation with Dylan? Do I get to have a conversation with Justin or anybody, or
Nope.
no? And there's no explanation as to why I'm going to let go,
Right
despite,
now, right now, we're leaving all.
you know, and you're going to keep saying a different direction, but I'm trying to understand how I've met multiple times with my,
We're going a different direction with the team, and I have to ask you to leave now.
you have to ask me to leave property?
Yes,
Due to what, Frank?
because we're asking you to leave because you've been terminated and we're not.
But there's no explanation or documentation for this. I've never had one bad review from Dylan. I've never had one issue with the company. I've never done anything unethical. And so I'm sitting here understanding why my entire livelihood is being completely tossed out. I mean, I sat
No,
in this chair.
you're gonna do great things.
No, and
I
I
think you're
plan
likely
to.
to. I don't think you're likely to being tossed out. I think you're
Well-
very successful.
Well, my paycheck every other week is being tossed out, Frank, with absolutely no warning whatsoever.
I understand. At this time, it's time for you to go.
It's time for me to go. Why? Like this
Because-
is the
because
treatment that Turning Point is offering now.
It's time to go.
Frank, this is crazy.
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from.
I don't think you do. This feels very heartless. This feels without emotion.
I do understand where you're coming from.
This feels completely without emotion.
It starts constructing a very different narrative, alleged, unconfirmed, but consistent enough across enough separate sources that people keep asking questions and expecting real answers. Because every new detail that surfaces doesn't feel disconnected or random. It feels like another piece sliding into the same puzzle, building a picture one specific claim at a time. Even the internal changes inside Turning Point USA get pulled directly into this broader conversation. Reports of staff being removed, sudden organizational shifts, voices going quiet without clear explanation. Nothing officially confirmed as coordinated or intentional, but enough visible movement behind the scenes to make people genuinely and persistently curious about what was actually happening that the public wasn't seeing. And that curiosity keeps growing louder and more organized rather than fading with time. Because the focus isn't on any single isolated claim anymore, it's on the pattern itself. The way stories shift when pressure is applied, the way details get adjusted when timelines are checked, the way certain inconvenient information disappears right as attention increases. When something like this surfaces from someone described as genuinely close to the situation, someone with real access and real first-hand knowledge, it carries a completely different kind of credibility than anything coming from outside observers piecing things together from public information. One online user captured the mood precisely, writing, "Weird. When was the last time you introduced yourself by saying, 'I'm a dear friend of so-and-so'? That's what Tracy said. 'I'm a dear friend of Erika's.' You are you? Okay. Now, does that single observation prove anything definitive on its own? Not by itself, but it makes people stop. It makes people listen more carefully. And once people start genuinely listening, they start connecting everything simultaneously. The past relationships that were erased, the resurfaced clips that contradict the official story, the timeline questions that never got clean answers, and the current claims now being layered on top of all of it. Because here's the simple truth that keeps this conversation alive and growing. If everything about Erika Kirk's story were genuinely straightforward, none of this would keep resurfacing with increasing detail and increasing credibility. It wouldn't keep pulling in new voices from new directions every few weeks. It wouldn't keep gaining momentum rather than losing it. That's not how false narratives behave over time. False narratives lose energy. They fade. They stop attracting new participants. This one is doing the exact opposite, and that pattern alone tells its own story to anyone paying close attention. That's exactly why people aren't looking at any of this the same way they were 6 months ago. They're analyzing, comparing, cross-referencing, and asking significantly deeper questions, not just about what's being said right now, but about everything that came before it, and how it all connects into a coherent picture. Because if even part of what's now being alleged turns out to be accurate, it doesn't just change one chapter of this story. It changes how the entire story from the very beginning gets understood and interpreted. And if none of it is accurate, then why does it keep coming back stronger with more specific detail and more credible sourcing every single time? That question deserves a real answer. So now the conversation arrives at this central point. Are these claims being amplified simply because of timing and political motivation? Or are they pointing to something people haven't fully mapped out yet? Something bigger sitting underneath everything that's been visible so far? And if more voices from inside this circle start speaking, what else is waiting to come out? Because the pattern suggests there's more, and people are watching and waiting for it. Drop your thoughts in the comments and keep this conversation moving, because it's nowhere near finished. Hit like and subscribe for more as this continues to develop.